But the covenant says, whatever you do, it's going to come back to you. So he did it. And within about around 30 days, he was dead. It says in Ezekiel that God says to the invaders, I'm going to bring you to the mountains. What happened to him? He was brought down against the mountains. And he fell on the mountains.
Right into the mountains. Ebrahim Raisi,
yes,
also known as the Butcher of Tehran, and
yes,
he earned that nickname.
Yes.
Former Iranian president killed in a helicopter crash in May 2024. An ancient mystery behind his death.
Oh yeah. He is the first president of Iran that actually oversaw a literal strike on Israel. Okay, and by the way, his name, Abraham,
April 13th, yeah.
Abraham links to the Jewish people and the Abrahamic covenant. But the covenant says, whatever you do, it's going to come back at you. So he did it. And so he did it, and within about around 30 days, he was dead. Dead. First one, he touched the apple of God's eye. And he threatened to annihilate it. He said there's going to be nothing left of Israel. Well, a little while later, there was nothing left of his life. And the other thing is that it's blasphemy, because you're saying you're going to destroy Israel, really, God's nation? And on that weekend, the day before, there was an appointed word in the scrolls. They're opening up all over Israel, all over the world. What was it? It talks about take the blasphemer outside and he'll be struck down. And so, and it says in Ezekiel that God says to the invaders, I'm going to bring you to the mountains. You're going to fall on the mountains of my land. You're going to fall. Well, he's the first one of that alliance that actually attacked Israel. What happened to him? He was brought down against the mountains, and he fell on the mountains.
Right into the mountains.
I mean, that's right. God is real.
Speak of another mountain, a holy mountain,
yes,
the Temple Mount, the most coveted piece of real estate in the world. Jonathan, obviously, the most holy place for the Jewish people, very significant to Christians as well, and Muslims also covet it. Where does the Temple Mount fall in all of this and in the dragon's prophecy? Yeah,
it's going to sound crazy or shocking, but behind October 7th was actually the Temple Mount. The Temple Mount is the ground zero of prophecy, the Antichrist, Book of Revelation. It's all happening there, the temple, the desecration. And so the enemy battles over that land more than anything. That little piece of land, the enemy battles. That's why he's keeping all Jewish people from praying on that mountain, because when they come back, Messiah comes back, when they build the temple. So what happened was, at the beginning of the year, actually, there was a rumor that Jewish people were trying to get on the Temple Mount and celebrate Passover, on Passover. Instead, a riot breaks out, warfare breaks out, and they threaten. They say, you're going to pay for this, Israel. Hamas does. And what happened on October 7th was the counterattack from the Temple Mount. It all began there. Even they said it in their statement. They said they called the attack the Al-Aqsa flood.
The dragon's prophecy, folks, is very encouraging. Just so you know, we're talking end of days. But this book, number one, the dragon's moving, but so is the God of Israel, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And when it comes to his people, he neither slumbers nor sleeps. So Israel's in a very good place. And followers of Jesus, followers of Yeshua are as well.
They're part of it.
We are. We're grafted in. And where is this all leading? There's another war that the dragon has planned. It's not going to succeed. But
which is Armageddon. And what we saw happen all over the world, the Bible says in Revelation that these spirits went out from the dragon's mouth, gathered the whole world against Israel. Well, that's what happened. It's crazy, because you think, okay, they'd be sympathetic, but it's almost like a blood frenzy. It's like the spirits smell blood. And so it was crazy, but you can see how it's going to happen. And the other thing is that it says the dragon wars not only against Israel, but against her children. And so who are the children? They're not Israel, they're children. Well, you are the children. If you're born again, you're a child of Israel. If you're born again, you're a spiritual Israelite. So the dragon is against the Jewish people in the last days, intense, and against the believer in the last, the follower of Messiah. And so we're going to watch this war, intensify. With Israel, he wants to destroy it. With the spiritual Israelite, Christian, he wants to persecute you. So that's why we have to get together. God is bringing. That's why you are who you are. God raised you for this time, this hour. That it's a time where Israel and the church is coming together. And the other thing is that here's a little mystery to it. I love it. I call it the mystery of the secret Israelis. And that is because a believer might say, okay, I'm spiritually Jewish. I know I'm spiritual and Israelite. But you're not just a spiritual and Israelite. You are a spiritual Israeli, because we're the only generation that actually see it manifest. Well, that's That's from God. So there are a lot of revelations about Israel. But one of the revelations we were talking before is that most Jewish people didn't know how to fight because they weren't allowed to fight. Yeah. And I said that most people have fight stories. Jewish people have an almost fight story. If he said one more word, that would have been it. But nobody knows the word. So, and I have a really good almost fight story. So the thing is that, but once they came back to Israel, they had to learn because the dragon's against them. The Israeli is the Israeli because of the dragon.
And these were ancient warriors. I think of the Maccabees and the problems the ancient Israelites gave the Roman Empire. Fierce warriors.
They were known as fierce warriors, but that was long forgotten. But when they came back, God is saying, I'm resurrecting you. You know, in Ezekiel, the dry bones, it's a resurrection of an army. So you're going to fight again. And so they start, these people who never fought, they become like one of the greatest fighting forces in the history of the world. Well, that is a sign for all of us. You see, if you are born again, you're a spiritual Israeli. That means you have to start fighting in the spirit. The thing is, in the last days, the dragon's going to go crazy, But the thing is, you have to fight. You have to become a fighter. And you know what? Just as they had their warriors back then, well, the people of Messiah, at the beginning of the age, they had their warriors. Paul, Peter, all those mighty warriors that changed history. We are to be that again. The enemy is against you, no matter who you are. He's against you. There's been a war he's been fighting since you were born. He's been trying to wound you, scar you, defile you, desecrate you, discourage you, mess you up, distract you, Well, the thing is, you got to not accept it. You got to say no. From here on, I'm fighting. I'm going to fight the good fight. Fight the good fight. You got to tell the devil no. The Israelis had to get tough because of the dragon, And so you have to get tough in the spirit, and God will give you victory.
Because the spiritual warfare is intensifying. I mean, I can feel it. It's palpable. We can feel it as believers.
Yeah, it parallels because you know what? Every day, Eric, we're watching the spiritual. We're watching the apostasy in America and the rest. But now we watch the war against Israel at the same time, and they go together. It's the same spirit. It's just the people who hate Israel hate believers, pretty much, and it's because it's the dragon. And the thing is, when you look in the Bible, you look in Revelation, in that same prophecy of the dragon, it says, but they overcame him. Who? The dragon, by the blood of the Lamb. It's saying that you compare, if you had a fight between a dragon and a lamb, you say, that lamb has no chance. Well, it often looks like we have no chance, but we're on the winning side. The lamb's on the winning side. Good comes as a lamb. Evil comes as a dragon. But in the end, the lamb wins. And so the thing is, there's something in the book, because at the end it says, he overcame him. Victory is with the Lamb. The word for they overcame him is the word nekao, which means to overcome, conquer, totally. But the cool thing is that it's written in the future, but in the past tense. And I love that because it's saying that, listen, you're fighting your fight, you're looking now, but you're guaranteed to win this fight. You're fighting a fought fight. You are running a run race.
We know how this script ends.
Yeah. We know how the story ends, and we got to live like that. We cannot live on the defensive. That's not how we're...
More than conquerors.
More than conquerors, and and because this is the thing, because if you're in a war and you don't know you're in a war, you're not going to win. You got to know you're in the war, but it's a good war. It's a good fight. Fight the fight of faith. Fight the fight of love, of joy, of hope. Never give up. Never give the dragon any room, because because the other thing is, we said that Israel, the Jewish people, have been persecuted by every major nation. I mean, every power, Rome, Babylon, the Pharaohs, Hitler, Soviet Union, the terror, always throughout history. But they're still here. All those powers are gone. They've crumbled. But the Jewish people, the lambs, they have nothing. They're still here. You're going to still be here.
Against all odds.
Against all odds. If you are God's people, you're a spiritual Israeli, you're going to win against all odds. But you got to fight the fight. Yes. And you will win. In Messiah, the Lamb.
That's right. The Genesis 12:3 principle, I guess you'd call it, Jonathan. Bless Israel, you will be blessed.
Yes.
Curse Israel, you will be cursed. History bears this out time and time again. And as we're talking about the ultimate encouragement here, the end game, the end of all this, the end of the dragon's prophecy and everything, at the end, Jesus returns.
Yes.
Not to Washington, D.C., London, or Paris, but to Jerusalem. He sets his foot on the Mount of Olives. And we mentioned Temple Mount earlier. What do things look like then?
They look real good. Because we want that. When he's in charge, it's good. When he's in charge of our lives, it's blessing. When he's in charge of the world, it's going to be blessing. It says in that day, it says the lion will lay down with a calf and the wolf with the lamb. In that day, they will beat their swords into plowshares. In that day, the knowledge of the Lord shall fill the earth. His name shall be one. The Lord shall be one. And in that day, we will all go up to Jerusalem. That is what the enemy, the dragon's trying to stop. But he cannot stop it. And that's the other thing we were talking about before, is the enemy always tries to stop God's purposes before they happen. So when you're being attacked and going crazy and all things are happening, rejoice and be glad, because God knows there's something big and the enemy knows there's something big. Just keep going. You're going to have your greatest victory.
If you weren't making a difference, then the enemy would leave you alone. Even with this book, you're making a difference, Jonathan. And there's been spiritual battles behind the scenes. And
physical.
We've talked about it we've talked about it off camera. But God always wins.
He always wins. He always wins. Be confident, because that is the encouragement we have here. Be confident. You know, if the enemy could have destroyed Israel, they'd be gone with the Hittites. You know, but they're not, and they're a sign for every one of you who are spiritual Israel. It's your sign that he cannot win, but you got to fight. You got to stand. Having done all, stand. No weapon formed against you shall prosper. And fight that fight, and you will stand.
Real quick, cautionary tale for America, the dragon's prophecy, in particular, our leaders and their approach to Israel?
Yeah, if we abandon Israel, America is gone. I mean, I think one of the things that is holding up America with all that has happened here is that we cannot turn from Israel. It's that we've supported Israel. If we turn from Israel, then that's over. That's over. We got to pray for our leaders. We got to vote. We have to bless Israel, and pray, and you will be blessed. Everyone who blesses Israel, you're blessed.
As we wrap up here, some final thoughts, and I think this is really pertinent to the conversation we had earlier with our good friend Rabbi Jonathan Cahn about his great new book, The Dragon's Prophecy, Israel and Prophecy. Look, God is very clear where he stands with the nation of Israel. Let's take two very important verses on that end. Genesis chapter 17, verse 7. God is very clear, I will establish my covenant as an everlasting covenant. Key word there, between me and you and your descendants. This is Israel. After you, for the generations to come, to be your God and the God of your descendants after you. What part of everlasting do Israel's enemies not understand? And God Almighty, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, drives it home further in the book of Jeremiah, chapter 32, verse 40, when he says, I will make an everlasting covenant with them. I will never stop doing good to them, and I will inspire them to fear me so that they will never turn away from me. Folks, like it or not, God has an incredible plan for the nation and people of Israel. Hey, he's a big God. He can have a mighty plan for his church, and he can have a mighty and awesome plan for Israel as well. The two aren't mutually exclusive. And think about this. Who ever heard of such a thing for a people to be wrenched out of their ancient and ancestral homeland for 2,000 years and then suddenly return to that very homeland against all odds out of the ashes of the Holocaust and reestablish a thriving nation state, surviving, really, not only thriving, but surviving against all odds. That's Israel. Not only that, to revive the ancient Hebrew language after some 2,500 years, only God. The existence of Israel is proof of God's existence. And yes, those covenants, here's that word again, are everlasting.